Hello, listeners. Kathy Lawless, Life Story Curator. I'm all about capturing and curating career and life stories as a meaningful way to celebrate a milestone moment like a big O birthday, anniversary, retirement, or graduation. And I'm at my best when curating photo books that move your memories from the basement or your phone or your computer to the coffee table, giving you and your family and friends access to these treasured memories for years to come. I also love curating and capturing life and career stories through this podcast series, How Did I Get Here? It's a series of interviews designed for people just starting out in their careers, people in transition, or possibly feeling stuck, and giving them access to the stories of people who have been there, done that, so that they might be inspired with some new ideas, or maybe just comforted knowing they are not alone, that everybody starts somewhere and everybody goes through times of transition and times when they feel stuck. Today, I'm very excited to be interviewing Sarah Irizarry. Did I come close?
You came close.
I came close. Well, why don't you say it so our listeners know exactly how to pronounce your name?
Irizarry.
Okay, I didn't roll the R. I just, anyway, well, welcome, Sarah. Even though I can't say your last name, I'm very excited to have you on the show today. So thank you for joining us. And Sarah is a marketing executive who is currently a free agent and looking for her next gig. So we're going to hear a little bit today about how did she get here to be a marketing executive, and then also what she's looking for. Before we jump into today's interview, let's hear a word from our sponsor, Life Story Curator, a testimonial from one of their very happy clients.
Oh my gosh, if you're considering hiring Kathy Lawless to do a book for you, you need to do it. My name is Ann DuPont, and I'm Chair Emeritus of a nonprofit that's been based in Denver called the Leadership Investment. And after 20 plus years of being in business, we decided we had to celebrate and commemorate all of the great work we'd done and the impact we'd had in the Denver community. So we hired Kathy Lawless and Life Story Curator to help us do exactly that. And I've got to tell you, the result has been simply outstanding. We went into it with a little bit of fear, thinking, is this going to be too much work? Can we really take this on? And Kathy just made it absolutely painless. She was fun. She was creative. She broke the work into bite-sized pieces that we could really take hold of and get done. And she just made it a lot of fun. We had a lot of laughter along the way. And the feedback from the members of our organization, from the staff, the community, the volunteers, has simply been outstanding. It has really done quite a remarkable job of capturing the essence of everything we achieved over 20 years. So if you're thinking about doing something like this for your organization, for your career, for your family, I would highly recommend it, and I would absolutely say that Kathy Lawless and Life Story Curator is the person for you.
Tell us where you grew up, what part of the country or the world, and a little bit about your family dynamics in terms of birth order and how you think kind of both those things shaped you, your birth order and where you grew up, how that shaped you as an adult.
Interesting. So I did grow up in San Juan, Puerto Rico. So outside of the United States, but linked to the US, right? My first language is Spanish. So I am fluent in Spanish, fluent in English, and also I know a little bit of French. I did study some French in high school and, travel the world. So fun, yeah. And how many siblings you asked? I am the oldest of two daughters. And how did that influence, you said, how I make decisions today, or how I...
Yeah, just how it influenced you as a person, you being the oldest, growing up in San Juan, I mean, that had to kind of shape who you are.
Absolutely. So as the oldest one, I got to do everything first. I was the first experience for my parents for absolutely everything. So with me, it was like, oh my gosh, how is it gonna go? How is that first, sport gonna go? And, I kind of set the expectations. So I was the one that set the example in the house, and I tried everything. So I think that took me further in life, or where I am in life, because I am not afraid of trying new stuff. And I know that it's going to be okay eventually. So, I take risks. I think a bigger risk taker, in my household. And I have done almost everything. I've always, been offered things throughout my life. And I say, yeah, okay, I'll do that too. That sounds really interesting. So, I'm not afraid of trying new things.
Yeah. I love that about you firstborns and the oldest, because you don't have anyone in front of you. And so you do kind of grow up with that mindset of, well, what do I want to do? What can I do? Let's just do it. Right. I'm a middle, so I'm second born. And I always had that one that I was looking at, and I saw her, try things, and it either worked or it didn't. And then I would be like, oh, well, then maybe I could try either one of those things. So interesting. But I love that about you firstborn. So many of you are high risk takers and leaders. So awesome. So what did you do for fun as a young person? Were you into, you mentioned sports, music, theater, reading, school? What was it really your jam?
Interesting. I love to dance. So I am a dancer, and I love to work out as I grew up. I danced ballet growing up, and I like the performance aspect of it. I also did a little bit of speech when I was growing up in high school. So yeah, that's what I did growing up.
So both of those performances probably require to put you out there in front of people. So again, back to that risk taker. Well, let's kind of go down that path then. Are you an introvert or an extrovert or an ambivert?
I think I am both. I think it depends on the people around me, the occasion, and the opportunity. So it just depends, I'd have to say. If I take the test, I think when taking all of these personality tests, I've come out to be much more of an extrovert. But then recently, as I have matured, I have been going more to the middle. So.
Yeah, more to the middle. That's funny. I mentioned I was a middle child. I tend to come out in the middle on a lot of the tests. It's very funny. And I did come out in the middle on the introvert, extrovert. My older sister is way on the left of extrovert. She's capital E on the extrovert side. So very interesting. And then again, as a middle, being more of that observer, I always saw that and went, oh, well, if she's that, then I'm not that, right? So I was kind of more the opposite. So how is your sister to you? Is she very different than you?
She's more introverted.
More introverted than you. Yeah. Okay. Let's see. On the fun meter, on a scale of 1 to 5, 1 being couch potato and 5 being life of the party, where do you put yourself?
I'm definitely not a couch potato. I barely watch TV. I love to be outside. I love to be with people. So definitely, and I love parties. So definitely much more of a fun and adventure seeker. When my life feels down, it's because I'm down on adventure, that I'm not getting the adventure I want. So I go out and, go for a hike, go for, driving something new. You never know. And just experiencing something out of the ordinary. I like to do that.
Yeah. So I'm guessing COVID and all of the quarantining and social distancing has been kind of hard for you.
Because I live near Fort Collins, we're less populated than probably Denver, where you are. So we've been outside. We've been outside a lot because it's not as populated here, and we've taken advantage of being outside.
Yeah. Well, it sounds like you're a hiker as well. And you say get in the car. All those things were things we could do during COVID, right? So I know those are the things I was doing: walking, hiking, driving. So, okay, on the risk meter, on a scale of 1 to 5, 1 being a low risk taker and 5 being high risk taker, where do you put yourself? And I know you've already kind of touched on this a little bit. I'm guessing you're going to be on the side of the 5 or maybe higher.
I think I am a risk taker because I've taken the opportunities as it's come. Yes, Yes, and both my husband and I, you need to make things happen when you're married, right? So, yeah, I think we're both embracing of opportunities that may come, and we evaluate them and figure them out and move forward. Yep, we like new things. We
New
like new
things.
experiences. We
Yeah.
don't like to be stuck.
Okay. Okay. Well, I love those icebreaker questions because it really gives us some insight into you as we get to hear your story and kind of how you've navigated through your career. So let's talk a little bit about what it's like to be a marketing executive, what you like about it, what you're looking for, and then we'll get into the how did I get here?
Okay. So in terms of who I am, I have 22 years of executive leadership in big brands. So I started off at Procter & Gamble, after my business school, and led big brands there, brands like Crest, Olay, Oral-B, brands that are big. I also did other things in smaller brands as well in my career. So that's what it means to be a, brand marketing executive. It's not only marketing, it's all aspects of a management of a product. It's the P&L. It is how do I get new innovation out there? What is the right new innovation? How do I win with my target consumer? And how do I remain relevant to my target consumer? And also, what are all the financial aspects of keeping up with my manufacturing or my, pipeline of innovation? And how do I make those decisions along the way? So, and also managing a team of people, right? And managing all agencies and contractors and all of that all together. So it is just more than just marketing.
Yeah.
So I call myself a, marketing executive, but it is deeper than that. It's all about brand and managing brands. It's my expertise. So in terms of what am I looking for right now? So in my last role, I was a vice president of brands for a private label company, and I was able to take 7 brands that they had just acquired, reorganize them, reposition them, write concepts, pipeline of products for them with a team that I hired and developed, and as well as set their e-commerce operations, restructure their P&L, and also develop the right content strategies for their e-commerce brands. So all of that is what I enjoy doing. And moving forward, I would love to do that for bigger brands. And also, I am also considering a second path that just came along recently, and it's probably joining a big consulting practice and really consulting with a variety of clients that may need help in answering big questions like, how do I premiumitize my product offering? Or, how do I position my product to better talk to my target consumers? So all of those things I am excited about and interested in.
Yeah. Well, I'm so glad you shared more details about what a marketing executive does and that you went down the description about the product side and the research and the management of it and the relevancy and the leadership of it, because, we do tend to think of marketing as always being that external thing, right? Which is just the splashy commercials or media and
that's a sliver of what marketing is.
Yeah.
And by the way, there are people that dedicate themselves only to that piece. And that is great, but I am much more of the brand management expert.
Yeah, brand management, the product. Thank you. Well, I'm glad you explained that then. So, well, and I think that helps people too who are listeners if they're thinking about, different careers or if they're in transition. You go, wait a minute, I've done quite a bit of, parts of that, maybe not the whole thing, but, which parts do fit together there and how might they then, talk about their transferable skills in that way and use that language. So awesome. Well, Sarah, I mean, when you were a young person, junior high, high school, did you think, oh, I want to be managing brands and products and get into marketing? Well, is that what you wanted to be when you grew up? Kind of take us back to that point.
I never said that when I was in high school. I never imagined that I would have the journey that I've had in my career, which has been a blessed one. And yeah, I never thought, I thought it would be something like archaeology or business, but I thought of being like my dad is, a CPA or, something that I knew somebody that was doing it, but not really, I didn't know anyone in brand management, so I never thought of it.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and if you've never seen someone do it, it's really hard to imagine that those jobs even exist or what those jobs are, right? And then people maybe have not told you, hey, you would be good at X. Like I look at my nephew and I look at, well, you know what? I think he would be a really good teacher. He's really good explaining things and I see him, with younger kids, and he's good at like help teaching and training them. And then I see him and, just as his aunt, as we're playing new games and stuff, how he explains things and, lays stuff out. So I look at that and go, oh, so sometimes that's the data you need, right? Is an outside influencer making a suggestion. Well, maybe you should be X, or maybe you should think about Y. So what did you then, you're in high school. How did you go to college? What did you decide you wanted to major in?
So in college, I was majoring in business, just general business and accounting. Yeah, so I came out of college as an accountant because I thought that was what I wanted to do. Like what my dad did that, so he was pretty happy and he would tell stories about it. So I thought, hey, that seems like something I could do as well. And I was really good in math. And somebody told me sometime, if you're really good in math, you should do accounting. So I was like, okay.
Okay. Again, Dad, see that outside influence then said, hey, maybe you should try this.
Influence there and role models, right? If you're, around a family who are lawyers, you're very likely to also be a lawyer. Like my sister, there's lawyers in my family, and my sister ended up being a lawyer as well. So.
Oh, okay. Yeah, it is interesting how you kind of look at your small circle to decide maybe what your end goal might be. So even though you were in business school, there wasn't a marketing class that maybe you went, ooh, that's really interesting, or?
Absolutely. So I like to learn. So I took a class in marketing. I took some marketing research. I also took a journalism class, and it showed me how to see things from different points of views and how they frame a story and etc. So that was very interesting, and it tugged at my heart early on, but I did end up, doing the accounting at the beginning of my career. Yes.
Okay. So you graduate, get that accounting degree, and then moved into accounting. So tell us about that. Did you like it, or did you go, oh, this is not me?
So it was super interesting. I actually, my goal was to work with a big 6 accounting firm when I graduated. So what I did, I interviewed with all the big 6. I only did that. And I got a job with 3 of them. And then I decided that I liked the people better at EY, Ernst & Young. So I went with Ernst & Young when I graduated, and I became an auditor initially. So that was a really fun thing to do actually at the beginning, because I learned how to decompose financial statements and to really understand the business model of my very different clients. I had banks, I had hotels, I had, all kinds of different types of businesses. So I really was curious and learning how to really understand how they make money, right? The other thing that I learned was to ask questions, because these auditors need to know, how to ask questions to get to the explanations in the financial statements, and to really understand materiality when you're talking about financial statements, what is material, what is not, and when do we need an opinion that has dived deeper into an aspect or an issue of the business. So that was extremely helpful for me, trying to ask always the right questions and see how people manage their business and with what risk, right? Was the business managed? And if I needed to disclose any risk to my audience, right? When you publish a financial statement, that's what you do. So that was super interesting. And I think that skill helped me later.
Absolutely. Wow. Yeah. Cause you're learning from, like you said, the financial aspect of it, and then peeling it apart and finding all the drivers that drive the financials and the risks. Totally get that. I did a stint when I was doing some consulting in an auditing group, and I was really got to appreciate the auditors, and number one, how smart they were to be able to kind of look at things and then, peel them apart, right? And go backwards and really understand what the, like you said, what was really material, and maybe some of the risk elements. But yeah, you do learn it so well from an accounting perspective, an audit perspective. You really understand business. Very cool. So you had great foundational experience. So how long were you in that auditor role?
So with EY, I spent 2 years. And what I noticed was that it was interesting going back to the same clients. Then once you go through them once, you understand them, you learn a lot the first time actually. And then the second time is much more like, okay, I've already done this and I did it really fast now. Then, I didn't let it be a third time. So it's really interesting young. And then I went with one of their clients, American Airlines. I've always been curious. So I wanted to, see the world, and I was really curious about the airline industry. So I had some friends that had done the same. They had gone from EY to American Airlines, and it was, the early 90s. So I got to travel the world and see all of their operations, but not only their operations from an airport perspective, it was also auditing Sabre. The mind of American, the spin-off, we spun it up, also doing co-sharing agreements, which needed due diligence work, and, just traveling and really understanding accounting across the world, because the same rules don't apply everywhere.
Yeah. Oh, wow. Fascinating. So you're living the dream. You get to travel, and you're doing the profession that you thought you were loving, or you were loving it at the time anyway, right? And it sounds like it was different enough. It wasn't going back to the same client again, like what was happening if he just stayed at E&Y, right?
Right.
Yeah. So it fed that little risk taker in you, it sounds like.
So learned a lot during that time. And I did that for 2 years as well. And then I decided I wanted to see how could I grow, in business a little bit more. So I went and did my MBA.
Ah, okay. So now when you were traveling the world, were you living in different cities for big stints of time, or were you kind of still home based at one place and then just traveling to different countries?
So American Airlines headquarters are in Dallas, Fort Worth. So my apartment and car, which had maybe 400 miles in the whole time I was there, was in Dallas. But I did travel the world. I would spend 2 to 3 weeks, and that was depending on the engagement in different, airports. If it was an airport, it was faster. If it was diligence engagement, it was a little bit longer. And sometimes we did part of the work in phases. So we would go back after a few weeks out of, like in Argentina, we did the Aerolíneas Argentinas due diligence work for the co-sharing agreements. So we went a few times to Buenos Aires.
Okay, so you said you decided to go get your MBA. Did you decide to do that part-time while you still worked, or did you decide to do that full-time?
Well, because my work with American was international, I decided just to go full-time. And I quit American Airlines at the time and went full-time on my MBA.
Yeah, that would have been hard. I don't know how you do that because, well, a lot of programs now have so many remote opportunities. You could probably do it remote, but yeah, if you're traveling international, it would be on so many different time zones and probably not work. So where did you decide to go?
So at the time I was living in Texas, and I really wanted to get into the McCombs Business School at University of Texas. So I got accepted. So that's where I went. I did apply to SMU and others in Texas, but that was the one I wanted to go.
Ah, so the number one choice, and you got in, so you decided to get your MBA, and then what did that open doors to?
So that was a great step for me. So the MBA, I was able to see business from a different perspective. So it was about more problem solving and leadership in terms of where I was. So in terms of doors, it got me to Procter & Gamble. I was able to get an internship in the year that I spent in that summer in between my MBA, and I was the Tampax assistant brand manager at the time. And I loved it. I loved it because I was able to use my analytical background to then tying it to strategies for business. I saw that transition really easy and clear. It was very easy and clear for me on how the company thought and how I could lead by doing that at Procter & Gamble, how I can contribute. So I saw a very clear correlation on how to do that early on there.
Yeah. Well, then that's just so great. So I'm guessing you're still pretty young at this point. Are you still in your 20s when you're kind of having these recognitions?
Yes, I was around 25.
Yeah. So that's pretty young to be kind of figuring out how your skill set is tying to what the different roles are in business and in the companies. That's pretty amazing. I got to tell you, I don't know that I understood all of those components at a skill set level as much as I just thought of things were just who I was. Does that, I don't know, I never really kind of separated that until I got older and was able to differentiate, different skill sets, different personality types for different types of roles. But it sounds like pretty young, you were able to pull that apart and see that. Did the MBA help you with that?
Absolutely. The MBA helped me a lot about like really understanding people, archetypes, that's how they call them, and also really defining my skills and what was transferable.
Oh, yeah, that's the right word there. Those transferable skills and how they can cross from being on the audit side over into more of the brand side. But I think also, and this is where we started when you explained what you did as a marketing executive. So much of it is, data driven, information driven, research. It isn't just the creative side. And I think a lot of people hear the word marketing and they go to the creative and not necessarily to the product, the research, and like you said, solving problems, which really is that more analytical side and the audit side that you came from. So totally get it. So you came in from that perspective. Then it was the MBA that really kind of opened your mindset, would you say, about that?
Absolutely, because then I had the opportunities to explore new companies and to explore new roles. The university I went to, UT, they had a great counselor and career service kind of branch that served, the executives in the MBA program. And they were so good about helping each individual to figure out what their skills were. They not only gave us tests, right, initially, to figure out if you were like extrovert. At that time, I was an extrovert. And to know who you were as a person and contributor, but also to understand your skills and where they could take you.
Wow, that's very cool. So the good news here is it sounds like you had help to help you figure that out. I'm working, or I shouldn't say working, I've been talking with a friend of mine who's a little bit stuck, and I get the impression he feels like he should just know all this. And I'm coming from a perspective of, we got to figure it out. Let's talk through this, right? What are your strengths? Let's kind of go down the strength path before we go down to what are you looking for path. Because a lot of times you take for granted what your strengths are. And once you figure those out, you can figure out how they're transferable into what you want. But it does take help a lot of times. It takes, I think, personality tests, skills tests, data points on what worked in the past, but also outside perspectives a lot of times. So it sounds like you had a lot of that going for you.
I did. I have been blessed that through my time, I've had really good mentors. And I've had really good also bosses as well. I mean, I've had the bad boss as well, let's be clear. But I've had really good ones as well that I have kept in touch with, and they have become mentors as well. So what I was saying is that I have also done the same things for others as well, through my time, where I have been able to grow and see those connections as well. I have also been able to mentor others. So that feels great.
Yeah. Well, it is great that when you've had good experiences and been mentored, then you do want to give that back, right? You're like, wow, I totally get. I wouldn't be where I am if I didn't have that help and that insight or that feedback or that criticism or that slap in the head at one point that I was not listening or whatever the thing might be. So, well, Sarah, tell me a little bit, if you're in your mid-20s and you've already been doing all of these auditing roles, got your MBA, talk a little bit about your confidence, as being the oldest. You already kind of touched on, you didn't seem like you were afraid of much, but you were probably the youngest person in the room a lot of times. How did you kind of manage that and feeling like you were confident enough that you should be there?
That is a great question. And, going back, sometimes I think I felt like I shouldn't be there because sometimes I was the only woman in the room as well as being the youngest one. But it's really about knowing your value and knowing, being certain of that value that you have. And that is something that I did not learn right away, but I learned through my whole lifetime, is that I've always gone back and understood what my strengths were, where I could add value, and be certain of that value that you can provide. I've always had people around me also that have encouraged me, as I mentioned before. So that is also helpful, as you're growing and getting into, more difficult roles and positions. Really knowing that value.
That's a great topic, and one I think I want to spend just a little bit more time on, because I would say I was not someone who knew that. And so I waited to be asked a lot of times. There were certain areas I was pretty confident in, but then there were certain areas I wasn't. So as a leader, I guess that's one thing I do encourage other leaders, is sometimes you got to make sure you're asking all the people in the room, not just those who are the most expressive or most vocal or most sure of themselves. You've got to find a way to ask those others, because sometimes it just needs one question to that person and they're willing to share, but they weren't going to offer it because they either felt like they didn't know their value, or it had already been said, or surely they don't want to hear from me, or who am I? I mean, there's all kinds of things going through people's heads, but sounds like you had some of that confidence, but also good encouragement. Plus you had some great insight by the MBA program and some great experience at that point. So
I think that I had confidence because you've got to have confidence when, you're in the 90s. It was the 90s when I was in a room with, men and, traveling, to remote locations sometimes in countries that, sometimes don't speak your language. I am bilingual, but I was not always going to like South America. I went to Japan, I went to China, I went to so many places, right? So yes, it's about really having time to understand what your strengths are and to always having time to think through those. And it has to be sometimes a daily ritual or something that you do on a daily basis to remind you of who you are. Because sometimes we get so busy with everything that we do that we are trying to serve so much and we don't invest in ourselves. So every day, and I now have it as a ritual. It was not as consistent when I was younger, right? Because we were just learning, that was important. But when I discovered that was important, that investing in yourself is important on a daily basis, I started doing it.
Yeah. So can I ask what your rituals are now?
Yes. So I can share that with you. So every day I get up and I have a journal where I write everything that I am grateful for. And I write a list of things that I'm grateful for every day. I think gratefulness makes your heart open to possibilities and to positivism, right? So if you're grateful, you were opening up your heart to hope and to many other things. So that's the first thing I do. I also go through and think, what am I going to do this week that is going to make me better? So I commit to being better on something, X, Y, or Z, for that week. And then I practice something different that week. If you're a leader and you keep doing that, you're going to realize that you're getting much better by practicing something different or by practicing something that you want to get good at every week.
Yeah. I love both of those. I do a gratitude journal and I tend to do my journaling in the evening. Maybe I need to just mix it up and start it in the morning because I do think it would set the tone differently for the day. I kind of started a more intentional intention setting at the end of last year. Now that I realize I kind of got out of my habit, out of my ritual, and it was really more powerful. But it's great. What I loved when you said that the gratitude, I wish I'd have had that when I was younger. And I'm hoping this might, maybe resonate with some listeners who are already younger, to appreciate and be grateful for what you have today. Because I remember at the time I was always thinking about what was next and how do I prove myself? And I didn't really and I think I took for granted where I already was instead of being grateful for where I was and appreciating and acknowledging what I had accomplished and what I had done and who I was being and how I had done those things. That probably would have given me more confidence in just being me. But I was always trying, you're kind of in that, I don't know, they call it the hamster wheel aspect, and so you're always thinking more and more versus being grateful for what you have and where you are and what you've done to get there.
The other area that I want to add is when you're grateful for the things that have happened recently, you also think the things that you have contributed to recently, right? So you're acknowledging wins as well, and that makes we don't celebrate wins enough where we internalize them as a human being. We just go past them and keep going, right? In like regular life, we just put it back. Oh yeah, that was great. Good. Let's go to the next one. And then it's not internalized. So it doesn't really come through as a strength then. And you gotta have the time to meditate on that win and what made it good and how did you do it? What was good about it? And how can you do it again? Right?
Yeah. And believe it and feel it. and own it. It's one of the reasons that I started this business that I'm in, this Life Story Curator, about how do we capture and celebrate, a career or life stories, because we don't take that time to pause. You think about it, one of the last times you paused was, at graduations, either college, high school, grad school, whatever, right? And then they have the big keynote speaker and they're inspirational and all that. And then after that, there's not much, right? It's then you get the job, you start going through things, maybe at a wedding ceremony, but yeah, until you've got to have those times to pause and really think back. And so the gratitude journal does it. And I find when I'm doing the gratitude journal, it's not just what I'm grateful for. I find I'm so grateful for what I see in other people and how we're interacting, and maybe something that I know was a big success for them that they either overcame or experienced for the first time or got to see. So yeah, it's pretty powerful. So I'm glad you brought that up, because that was I remember driving away from my corporate role after 20 years thinking, what do I have to show for this 20-year career? And I was always the one, I was kind of the glue in the group that made sure there was a going away and a happy hour. And it wasn't just getting together. It was also, let's talk about what this person brought. And we'd always try to do something fun to talk about, how they were, who they were on the team, what their skill sets were, what their strengths were. And so here I'm driving away, leaving, going, oh, where's my Kathy? Where's my person to help, send me off with it did kind of come later, but, I had outlived kind of some of my great teammates who had already moved on, and I was kind of the last one to leave. So it wasn't easy for them to figure that out, but
Yeah.
But anyway, yeah, it was really hard to drive away with, well, what do I have to show for this? I had to really find that myself. Others can't do it for you.
Correct. And now that you mentioned that, I want to add, great leaders celebrate and take time to celebrate with their teams, what they have achieved. At Procter & Gamble, learned that to do that periodically, so that the team would be engaged, would celebrate their wins, and would build upon that foundation. And that was one of the greatest gifts I got from Procter & Gamble and learned to keep doing as a leader afterwards. It was a great school, believe me.
Yeah. Yeah, I was, when I was in corporate, I led a lot of cross-functional initiatives. And so I was, these people didn't report to me, but they would come onto the project or the program for their function, and then they would come on and off and on and off. So I always made sure at the end to have that celebration to say, here's what we did. We just onboarded this, this company, we merged with them, and here's how each, kind of group and each person then contributed, because, they were already on to that next thing. They were part of the beginning, and then now we're at the end. So they at least got to see how it all came together, and it did make a difference. And I know I wanted to do that for my own self, but also for all of them to keep saying, wow, it's because of all of you that we did this. So very cool. Okay. So you were at, you got your first brand experience at the internship. I'm sorry, we got a lot to get through here. So you got through the MBA. You were at, I think you're a Procter. Was that your first internship?
So, wow, I did a lot for them. I managed their several brands as assistant brand manager. Then I grew up, to be a senior brand manager and brand director. I did North America Oral Care, launched Crest Pro Health Face and the Rinse. Launched before that, actually, Crest Whitening Plus Scope, which is in the market still. I have a patent on basically the floss. I patented the floss pick.
Wow, congratulations.
Then I moved and did, the floss business globally. I also worked as part of the team that also integrated Oral-B as it came into Procter & Gamble as an acquisition, because it was part of Gillette at the time, and that was in the early 2000s. And
Proctor is so big.
yeah, and then I took on a role that I did all of Oral-B toothbrushes globally. I had basically Asia, Western Europe. My development team was in Kronberg, Germany, and the manufacturing plant was in Mackeidenfeld. It's still there actually in Germany. And yeah, it was an amazing time to be part of P&G. Yeah, and as part of that, we launched Dentist Clean Feeling, which was a campaign that was on for a good amount of time in the 2000s. And then I also did the Olay brand. I moved on for there and did the Olay brand and worked that globally as well, and launched it in China for body care. And that was also a great experience and a great team. And then because of family situations, you know, when you have a dual career, you know, you have always to negotiate and figure out, you know, what to do with your husband and yourself and what is next. So we moved to Columbus for an opportunity for my husband to lead the Wendy's brand. So I took an opportunity with Abbott to lead the Similac, Pediasure, and Pedialyte, and no, the Similac, Pediasure, and later on introduced a toddler brand into Similac, which was Go and Grow by Similac. I did the launch of that brand in 2015, and then I moved on to do my own things. I had the basically the itch to do my own brand, and I did. I launched a probiotic brand called Active Change in 2015, and I managed all of their e-commerce, put it on VTC. It was VTC, Amazon, all of that, and also became part of the launch team of Halo Smile, which was another small brand, and worked at the DTC model for that brand, and launched it in, you know, Asia and also in the States. And from there, I moved to Colorado again because we had to figure out the dual career thing, and you know, we moved for him this time as well here. So I am in Fort Collins, but as part of that, I got the opportunity to lead the Harris team as I, you know, worked also here in Boulder with some of the brands as well at the beginning. So that is kind of in a nutshell all of the years comprised in 5 minutes. But yeah, I went up the ladder in terms of, you know, the different roles, the different experiences. I took on, you know, market strategy and planning roles with customers, Walmart, Target, all of that, all the way to global roles in my career. So I just love to figure out, you know, problems, challenges, and, you know, get a brand growing and figure out their business model and where's the growth with the consumer. And that's my passion.
Wow. Well, I know you went through that pretty fast, and I have a bunch of questions, but we are at the point where we have to start wrapping up, or else we'll just keep going all afternoon, which I could, by the way, because your story is so fascinating and you've done so much. Plus, I love that you're in a space where every brand that you talk about, people know, right? And it's interesting. So that's why it's also easy to kind of relate to you and to understand what you've been doing. So, but we do need to start wrapping up. So Sarah, if you would, I've got a couple wrap-up questions. If you would tell us, what do you think served you best when you look back on your career? You know, it can be a strength, a personality trait, or maybe a discipline or a habit. What do you think served you best?
Perseverance helps me a lot because many times I like to go beyond the obvious to find solutions, you know, to find the right fit in a brand. And sometimes what I have realized is that the first diagnosis of a problem or analysis is it's right, but it's not the end. It is the beginning of really understanding everything we need to do and all the questions we need to ask to then make that strategy work well. The strategy that we eventually come up with, right?
Oh, I love that. You're right. It's kind of, you get to that first level of digging, that first why. And then it's like, wait a minute, there's probably more. So your perseverance is, well, let's keep going and see what else is revealed, right?
Keep asking questions.
That's
Yeah.
the auditor in you.
Be curious. Keep asking questions because that's key. Again, I would have been misled in many of the instances in my career where I got an analysis and, you know, the finding, the top line finding, I would have just gone with it. Yeah.
So do you think it is your auditor background that helped you realize you needed to keep peeling it back, or what? How did you know that?
It is my auditor background, I think, my auditor training that initially kept me going. Now it's just the way I do things, right?
Yeah.
It's just the way I look at problems and at brands and at answers, right? And solutions.
Yeah, I would imagine sometimes you drive your team crazy because they would be like, but we figured it out. And you'd be like, no, maybe we didn't figure it out.
Well, you know, I think it's about asking questions. I never tell anyone that they're wrong. It's about asking more questions and figuring out, okay, so you've gone this far, but have you thought about this? Have you thought about this other thing? Have you asked this other question? It's about training the team to dig themselves and find the answers for themselves. Because if you don't do that, then you're not serving them.
Yeah, yeah. You're right. It is about asking the right questions. And I guess recognizing, well, when am I done? When am I done asking questions? When are we really at the appropriate strategy or what? And some of that is you have to test it and keep testing it and seeing if you're right. Or if it's working, or if it's getting the right responses that you're looking for. I guess there's no secret playbook to know, well, I've asked 5 questions, now I'm done.
No. And sometimes you think you're done, but if you like craft a strategy and a concept, let's say, which is what I call it, a concept with these areas that you test with consumers, then you learn more and then you dig deeper because you ask the consumer to help you get there. Right?
Yeah.
It's a combination of many areas where you can, you know, get the right strategy and the right, you know, kind of creative to move forward.
Yeah. Okay. All righty. Well, one last question then is, any words of wisdom that impacted you throughout your career that really kind of, you know, gave you an aha moment or helped you when you were in transition or feeling stuck, or maybe that you use when you are working and helping with other people?
Well, I think my biggest words of wisdom is that when you're in transition or if you're stuck, don't look inside only, because you always have to do inner work, right? But look towards mentors. Ask and test what that next step might be with your mentors and with people that surround you, that encourage you. That is my words of wisdom. It's, you know, we're not in an island. There's so much knowledge. If you don't recognize that there is so much knowledge outside of you that others hold, then you're disturbing yourself and negating yourself opportunities that may come and doors that may open.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, as I've done a lot of internal work and stuff, you're right. You can't see your core competencies a lot of time. And something you're really good at, you just think everyone's good at that, or you don't even know that's a thing, right? Like I didn't know that my arranger skill was a thing until I did the StrengthsFinder tool. And then I had a coach point out to me how that works with my books and how I can arrange such complex information into something, or matrices that I made at work around problems and things like that. So you don't know, but it is about testing other people. And it's amazing what they can reflect back to you, that they know about you that you don't know. It's fascinating. So yeah, great words of wisdom there.
Yeah. And make sure you surround yourself with people that are smarter than you.
Ah, oh, always, always. Well, Sarah, thank you so much for sharing your story today and your words of wisdom and your insight. I guess we do have to wrap up though. So I will say, listeners, if you enjoyed today's interview, please subscribe below so you'll be alerted when other interviews are published. And if you have any questions for me or for Sarah, I'll publish this interview on my website, lifestorycurator.com. So you can post comments there and questions, and also post any social media that you'd like me to share about you, Sarah. And I guess on that note, I'll just stay safe, stay well, and let's keep sharing those stories. Have a great day.